Hello. I've featured Digital 8 camcorders on my channel a few times before, and the reason is they can be so useful. Not only do these play Digital 8 tapes, but many, not quite all, Digital 8 camcorders, as well as playing digital tapes, can also play analogue Video8 and Hi8 tapes. So they're very competent players in their own right. They have a digital time-based corrector built in, so great results. But even more importantly, they have a FireWire port, so you can get a DV data stream there you can capture on a PC and get 13 GB per hour video files, which are low compression, high quality file format, way better than you'd get from one of these horrible video to USB devices. So these still fetch good money. And today I have 3 camcorders of interest. 2 have been sent to me, and one is one from my own set here that I was using, and it's broken down on me. Worse still, got customer's tape stuck in it, so we'll have to work on that. Now, briefly, before you rush out and buy one of these, there are a few you need to avoid. And if you look on my website, which is Video8 Co UK, and then go to the section for 8mm, there's a table I've done at the bottom which shows which of the Digital 8 camcorders will also play analogue tapes. It's nearly all of them. Mainly avoid TRV130 through 147, and then later TRV245 through 285. There are some other certain limitations. Some won't support long play or other things, but generally most of them do what you want. Now the camcorders we're looking at today, there's a TR8100 and a TR7000. But the one that's most pressing for me is my TRV120E, which has this pop-open panel here. And there's a flexi-cable goes from that pop-open panel down to the main electronics. And that flexi panel can snap, and that's what's happened here. So the eject button, which is on the back part of the panel, doesn't work. It wouldn't matter so much that the front buttons don't work. I can use remote control for that, but there's no remote control code for eject as far as I'm aware. So sometimes if this happens, you can wiggle it and jiggle it, keep pressing the eject button, and it might eject, but not today. Also, none of these lights are lit up even though this is powered up. Looking at the TRV7000, this is a slightly different design where that panel stays down and the door opens here. This is a slightly cheaper machine. It doesn't have the nice pop-out colour display. It just has a colour viewfinder. The TRV120 has this rather nice display. Looking at this TRV8100, this does have the pop-open display, pop-open panel, and you can see the lights are working on that. But it doesn't have a nice pop-out display. And it's doing weird things. It's saying C3110. Oh look, there's components missing from the deck here. So this is somebody sellotaped on some parts that have fallen out the deck. It looks like one of the guides. So that's quite serious. Therefore, if the flexi cable from this fits the TRV120, then I'll swap that over. Right, that's non-trivial, but that's the plan. Okay, so let's get this apart first. This is the TRV120 with the tape stuck in it. Now, I'm not a complete expert on these. I do have to sort of remind myself each time I work on one of these how to take it apart, so bear with me. But from the main point is that you have to undo those screws underneath, ones along the back here, some around here, pull the front off, and then you can open up the cabinet work. Right, I've disconnected this flexi cable to the record and pause switch there. Now here's the motor. If I could power that motor up, I could go into eject, but that's not really practical because I can't readily disconnect that motor from the driver board. It's on this rather awkward to get to connector down here, from which I need to take the deck out. So I'm not going to apply a voltage on that for fear of blowing up the electronics behind it. So I may go straight ahead and start looking at the actual fault, which is trying to fix this eject button. Now access isn't good from what I remember. It's quite hard to get to the flexi cable behind here. Let's take this part off and then we can see the cable beneath. Right, here's the flexi cable, and here's where it fails, and I'll have a look at that under the microscope with you. I'm sure we'll find it's fractured. So you might be able to see here, this is where the cable sort of goes around the corner, and you can see the copper through there because it's split. So here's the flexi cable after a great deal of dismantling. Here's the flexi cable here. So I've pulled this bit of sticky tape back, and then this is where the flexi cable connects to the board. Okay, let's unplug that cable. Okay, so this is the cable on the camcorder side, and this is on the front panel side here. And the main button I really need is just eject. Everything else is optional. Okay, let's look at the damaged section under the microscope. Okay, I think you can safely say that those contacts are not going to work. Right, I think we can see quite clearly those contacts are broken, and there's really no way of repairing that. You'd have to try to make up all those links, but there's nothing to solder to, so not much we can do. Because while we could make solder connections to the front side here, we wouldn't be able to make any kind of solder connection here and be able to get that to fit in the socket. So repairing this is very nearly impossible. Let's see if the other camcorder can give us the part we need. So this is the donor. We're going to have to take all this apart and take everything apart to get this part out. And let's hope it's compatible because it is a somewhat different model number. It's looking good, isn't it? It's looking the same. They do look to be compatible. I think I can carry on and strip this down. If you want everything to work properly afterwards, you do need to watch this spring here in the focus. Nope, in the zoom in-out switch. Okay, here's our donor unit. Let's take a look to see if this one appears to be intact. So the broken one is ripped. right there. It goes around the corner, and our donor has no rips. Oh good, we should be able to fit that. Should we just make a quick visual to see it's identical? It certainly appears to be identical. Okay, we have quite a lot of reassembly to do. If we want it to be more than just the eject button, it'd be nice to get all the switches working again. It's a little bit fiddly to reassemble. Let's begin. Okay, so that part has gone in. We've not knocked the photo button out of this one. That came off the other one. And I think the zoom is not... No, that's not quite right. We'll have to do something with a spring. Let's have a look at that. Okay, what you don't want to happen is the spring that's in the zoom control, you don't want it to sit in there and then fire itself up across the room like mine has just done. Okay, I'd settled the spring down into the channel here on the zoom control, and then it fired itself across the room, never to be seen again. So that's unfortunate. Fortunately, we do still have the one from the donor camcorder, but I need to work out how that spring fits before I put this back together again and lose another one. This slider here has to engage with the zoom control here, but exactly how the spring goes I'm not yet certain. Let's fit this and get this plugged into the PCB because that's really important. Okay, I have the connector inserted into the board. That's a major step forward. I can do a bit more reassembly now. So that's the connector taped down again. Okay, I have a lot of reassembly to do, but before I'm going to do any of that, I will now activate the eject button, which is this one, and hopefully it will eject the tape, and that will get that part of the job over and done with. Also tested the most important part. Right, now to the quite fiddly reassembly of this part. Don't make a mistake that I made. Don't put the front back on until you've put this side panel back on, or you'll get into a problem with it. So try to put it back in the same sequence as it all came apart. Let's do a quick test before I put the final cabinet work together on the last screws. Something's not right. I don't think this is connected, so it's only capable of ejecting and taking a tape in, but it's not operating with this. So I think I've made a mistake reassembling that switch, so I'll have to pull that off and have another go. Oh, in all my wiggling and jiggling I'd unplugged this cable from there. So refit that. Okay, that's looking okay. There's very few screws in this side of it now, but I will just power it up again and see if we have proper response this time. Yes, it's operating with that switch. Display's lit up. The lights are lit up on the control panel. Good. And that seems to be playing good. Just check for sound as well. Curiously, I do not appear to have sound from the internal speaker. I'll try another tape in case that's not a real fault. I think there was a digital 8 tape in this one. Let's try that. No sound from the internal speaker. Oh dear, that might be a problem with the headphone socket, perhaps. Actually, I'll try headphones on it. Well, there is sound from the headphone socket, but not. It's just a bad contact on here. I will have a quick look at it, see if there's an easy fix. You know, I'm wondering if the entire front assembly from the donor camcorder might go across, because that includes the headphone socket. Apart from the font, the writing there telling us what the digital zoom capability is, these appear to be interchangeable. So let's see if we have speaker sound now. Still no sound. Isn't that weird? Well, that seems very odd. Since it didn't fix it, I'll refit the original. But I don't believe that both have got bad connections on the headphone socket, so there's something else strange going on, I suspect. So the menu is creating sound, so there's not a problem with the speaker, and there's sound on that, but there isn't sound on the speaker except when the microphone's half plugged, the headphones are half plugged in. So that's some kind of defect, and I'm going to have to live with that, because it's not worth spending too much time trying to fix that particular fault. Right, I'm going to refit all the rest of the screws. So the faults we ended up stuck with is I've lost the spring to the wide telephoto zoom control, which is annoying, and we've got this sound fault, which is probably a pre-existing fault. Oh well, at least we've got the thing working again. Let's finish reassembly. Okay, that's working fairly well. It's a bit sad that we've lost the sound and this stupid zoom feature, but its job in life is to digitize mostly analog 8mm tapes, and it will continue to do that, so we'll call that fixed. The way I tend to run these is with this open. I don't close that very often at all, because I want to reduce the amount of wear on that cable. Let's just take a look at the damage to the flexi connector here and see if we think there might be any chance of repairing that. So here is where it's broken. most of the part that's broken actually in this one is earth plane, so it probably would be possible to scratch through there and get through to the copper underneath, and then similarly on the other side here. But also, of course, this crack does extend on into these finer tracks, and whether we'd have any chance of cutting that back and making contact, well, probably not. So at the far end here we could probably get through to whichever pad it is down here, where the buttons, you could make contact there. But at the far end of this track, along here where the edge connector is, there's no way, I don't believe, of soldering any wires to these contacts and then still having it possible to plug into the edge connector. So I would have said that repair of that cable is impossible. So much for this newfangled sort of flexi-cable technology. Although it might not be as newfangled as all that, because the first time I ever had a problem with a split flexi cable like this was in the instrument cluster of my very first 1972 Hillman Avenger. Yes, they actually used a flexi cable on a car designed in the 1960s. It was very high tech in its day. Right, so this is now my spare parts bin machine, because it's got a broken mechanism anyway. It's now given up this. But another component in here that's quite likely to turn out to be very useful in the future is, I believe, it'll have a good pinch roller, and the pinch rollers do fail on these, so that's a very useful spare. And this is the one that we've repaired, and now eject's okay. A previous owner had cut the strap off. I didn't do that. Some people just don't like the straps. So that's okay, apart from the fact that we've lost the spring in there, and we're having a little bit of a sound problem. But fundamentally, that camcorder is good to go. So we have one more. It's the model TR7000, so it's another lower spec model because it doesn't have the pop-out screen, but it does have a colour viewfinder here. And from what I saw of it when I tried it briefly, it seemed to work. Let's just try an analog tape in it. This is one where I think you've got an on-off switch here. There we are. Camera, player, off. Right, so we put it into player. That didn't eject properly. Let's try that again. What's up? Why is that not ejecting? I'm not sure what the problem is. We'll just get this strap out of the way, and we'll also take this door off. Just give it a little bit of room to move in case there's something jamming on it. When I take that strap off, I see there are two great big holes drilled in it. So this looks like it's been used as... I have a machine like this which I use for playing misaligned tapes. So you can get to the guides when it's in the laced position. So that's interesting. Let's try it again. Aha, so that's freed up whatever's wrong. So it might well be that someone's been using this as a player of misaligned tapes. And that might explain why the picture is all over the place. So we could just have a bit of an alignment issue here. Let's get the proper tape guide adjusters. One of these kits are ideal. So we can see down into the guide adjustments there. And this is the proper tool. You can get by with a screwdriver though, and adjust those. You get a feel for it though. You start to recognise which way the lines are and which guide it's likely to be. If there's disturbance just at the bottom of the screen, sometimes it's the exit guide. Weirdly, it's spinning and not making any adjustment on the exit guide. That's unusual. Giving you some idea of the picture here. So there's lots of disturbance at the bottom, which implies the bottom guide, the output guide, is the problem. But I'm not getting anywhere when I adjust that. So I've set it up so that the picture is roughly right with this top guide, the input side. So the bulk of the picture at the top is okay. So we really need to be looking at the exit guide now, but the exit guide doesn't seem to be making any adjustment. I turn it and turn it and turn it, and just nothing's happening, and I've never seen that before. You'd expect something pretty profound to happen if I turn it this much. In fact, it should have hit the end stop by now. So the guide adjustment is not working. Let's have a closer look at that. So as I've been adjusting this, it's not been adjusting the position. Let me take a look at it under the microscope and see if we can see what's wrong. Okay, so as I adjust this, it should go down, and it's not. Whereas on the input side, if I adjust that, you can see, I think it should wind itself down the post. Looking at the pillar from the scrap machine, hope you can see that as I adjust this, it does go up and down. This tiny gap here between the base and the bottom of the guide does adjust, so it should be going down now. See that? And eventually it hits the bottom and stops. It's a fine thread, but it does move. Yeah, see that? Opening up and closing down. So that's what I'd expect. But when I adjust this, it is not. It just keeps turning. Anyone who's familiar with these might have some idea why that's not making any adjustment. It may be a different design, or it could be a fault on here. Somebody's wound them up too far and stripped the threads perhaps. So if you know the answer, do let me know. Well, I hope you've enjoyed us working through some repairs on Digital 8 camcorders. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.